Hello, friends. What is up? Happy Tuesday. I hope I'm able to get this edited and posted right after I record it. My life has been so crazy. I feel like it's never not going to be crazy at this point. Like every week that I'm like late posting the podcast, or I missed a Friday, or I missed a Thursday. It was supposed to be Thursdays initially. I'm like, I'm so sorry, guys. My life is falling apart. I'm now growing to accept my life is always going to be falling apart because I'm a business owner. So it's fine. I've just been enjoying life. I'm trying to take more time for rest and recovery. I've been reading a little bit more. I've been playing video games, like probably too much. But it's been fun and I've really been enjoying it. I just recently joined the local BNI chapter, which is like insane and scary, but also exciting. So that's been kind of keeping me busy. I have like tons and tons of new client work, which is amazing. I'm so blessed. I literally, if I didn't have this much work coming in, I'd be in a really uncomfortable financial situation. I'm just barely making enough to like keep my head above water. So I'm very thankful for all of this extra work that came my way, because otherwise I would have been panicky and stressy. But everything is good. Kind of just trying to iron out my systems now that I have a decent like flow of work. Just trying to make sure all of my systems are operating as smoothly as possible. And if there's a hiccup, I'm trying to fix it straight away. It's just a lot of good stuff to kind of catch you guys up. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about something super boring and nerdy. It's going to be finance. It's kind of important, and I really don't think I touched on it too much on this podcast. I actually had one of my listeners reach out to me directly and request an episode about like finance. They had asked me like, do you have any podcast episodes on finance or anything like that? And I didn't think I did. I'm pretty sure I don't. You guys could check me on that. But they asked me and I said I'm pretty sure that I don't. And I asked them, what kind of like burning questions do you have about finance specifically? So I'm just going to go ahead and read what they had said. They were looking for information on FreshBooks or QuickBooks. I personally don't even know what FreshBooks is. I've never heard of it. I didn't have time to look into it either because my life has been insane. Maybe I should have. Sorry about that. But I am pretty versed in QuickBooks. That's what I currently use for my software right now. Ins and outs of connecting a bank account to QuickBooks, invoicing, how to get paid with net 30 or even net 90 days kind of stink, banks holding checks because they don't know if it's real, those types of things. Local credit unions seem to be better than big chain banks, but they have the same policies. I've been thinking of going the online banking route. So this is kind of like a lot to digest because I'm not that great with finance stuff. Now that I've joined BNI, I can actually probably answer this a little bit better once I talk to the financial advisors in the chapter. But right now, like, I'm also operating on limited knowledge. I literally, if I'm being real with you guys, I did not know how to write a check. I did not know how to pay a credit card. I did not know how to open a bank account when I started my business. I was so financially dependent on my parents to handle my accounts that I never really had any experience running things on my own. So I have negative amounts of experience in the financial world. When I started my business, I knew that it was important to start to do these things. So one of the first things that I did when I started running my business, just to kind of walk you guys through a brief history, and I'm going to keep this pulled up here because I'm going to have to reference that a little bit later so I don't forget to answer everything. But when I started my business, it was so embarrassing when I started my business. So I had my personal bank account was with BB&T at the time. Now it's known as Truist. So that was just my personal bank account. That was my only bank account that I had that I would use for like my jobs that I held at the time for direct deposit for jobs and things like that. I think I only had a checking. I didn't even have a savings. So I only had like one tiny account when I started. When I started doing freelance, it was usually just for cash or like really low amounts. And I think for primarily the first part of my business, I was just taking like cash payments, and the occasional check I would just like deposit in my Truist because it was like $100. Like I knew the IRS wasn't gonna come kicking down my door over taxes on $100. So I kind of just did that for a while. And then finally, when I was doing it more regularly and I start working with clients that were requiring like direct deposit slips and they wanted to 1099 me and stuff like that, that was so scary. I was so scared the first time that I got 1099 and I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't file properly that year because I didn't really make a lot. I think I made less than $2,000 with that company that 1099 me. So like, I didn't even include it on that year's taxes. I didn't really worry about it too much, even though it stressed me out so bad. But now that I am more sophisticated in my business, now I know what 1099s are and I know how to properly file and I do everything by the books now. But at first it's like you kind of don't know. And usually you're making such a small amount, it really doesn't matter. Like I probably stressed more than I should have over it. But once they start requiring me to do like these direct deposit forms in 1099, I knew it was important to set up an account. So I actually set up a PayPal for myself and I set up an Ally account for myself. So Ally is a completely online bank and I absolutely love them. If you know, you're having issues with banks not clearing checks or things like that, Ally is amazing. I've never had an issue ever. I love Ally to death. It's amazing. So I got my little account with Ally and I opened a checking and a savings and I got my little PayPal account. And at the time, it was just a normal PayPal account. It was not a PayPal business account. I didn't make that conversion until later on in my business. So what I was doing is PayPal had an amazing ability to create estimates and invoices, which was like everything that I was looking to do. Because initially I was like making out these invoices in this like sketchy, cringy software. It was like Invoicely or something. And then I'd like send it to my client. It would like just send a weird like spam looking email. And then I would get paid either via PayPal or like they would write me a check or something. Or it was like, I don't even remember. It was just not a good system initially. And you kind of just have to make mistakes and learn as you go. Then once I got a little bit more serious, I found out that in PayPal, like you can create estimates and invoices and things like that. And I like that a lot better because I can send my clients a link to the invoice, you know, with the final email saying that the payment is due or whatever. And it wasn't coming from this sketchy, weird, you know, like Invoicely or whatever it was that I was using. So I really liked that. That really suited me well. So I was using PayPal and Ally pretty much like in tandem. And that was when I was still just freelancing, but I still had like a full-time job. Like this was not the full-time thing that I had to rely on for my source of income. So fast forward to where I quit my full-time job and I wanted to start to make this more of a serious thing. And I knew it was time to open a professional business bank account. And that was scary because I've never done that before. A friend helped me open my Ally account, so I had to do this one on my own and it was kind of scary. I ended up choosing to go with PNC because I heard a lot of good things about PNC my whole life. Like a lot of my close friends use PNC. All of them have wonderful experiences. Back in the day, when I had my Truist bank account and I had a large amount of money saved and I was working at my full-time job, I had $8,000 just get withdrawn from my account at a bank at a branch in Georgia. And I was like, what? So I called and I was like, hey, this was not me at a bank in Georgia. And me and my dad like had a joint account on the Truist account. So apparently it was some like identity theft or identity fraud of my dad in this bank in Georgia. And it was just such a scary, weird situation. The good thing is I got my money back because it was like FDIC insured. So I got my money back, but it was so unsettling. Like I literally just wanted to close my account immediately after because that was just so unsettling that could happen. And my fiance has PNC. So we were at like a PNC branch or he had like a PNC representative on the phone or whatever. And he had told them this story and they were like, they could not even wrap their head around how that could be a reality. They were like, do you know the amount of security checks that would have to happen if you were out of state, like an out of state person? This bank is registered to my name. My license is attached to Pennsylvania. Like to be out of state and do a withdrawal that large, they were like, that had to be an inside job. Like, so crazy to hear, you know, a bank teller say that, but after that, I was like really confident in PNC, and I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna go for it. So I opened a business bank account with PNC, and it was great. I had a lovely representative that helped me through the process. All virtually, I did not have to go sit at a bank for an hour and a half. It was amazing and super smooth process. Loved it. Kudos to you, PNC. Love you forever. And yeah, ever since I've been rocking and rolling with that. I've never really had any issues with checks not clearing or banks holding my money. The only time I ever had an issue with an account or software holding my money was PayPal. I ran into so many issues where it was like, this is a suspicious transaction, or we have to make sure that the product was delivered, or like it was all these kind of weird things where they were just like holding my money forever. And my business bank account with PNC, for the first little bit that I had it, it didn't have the option to send money with Zelle. So I had to do this BS thing because I couldn't, like, I'd have to write checks out of the account and get checks, and that's just a pain. So what I was doing is I had my PNC linked to my PayPal, and I had my Ally linked to my PayPal, and I would send money from PNC to PayPal because that was the only way I could get money out of PNC. And then I would send money from PNC to PayPal, and then it would take 2 weeks to get there. And then I would have to send that from PayPal to Ally, and it would take 2 weeks to get there. It was so frustrating. And then I finally got the notification that PNC was going to start offering Zelle with the business bank accounts, and I was literally like, yay, could not wait. And now that I have all of that set up, literally I can just send myself money to my personal account, because now what I did is I got away from Truist. I do not want to be part of them anymore. I'm not satisfied with $8,000 just going missing and then being like, oops, don't really know. So I was like, F that. I canceled my Truist account. I'm done with that. And now I made Ally my personal account because that's not a business account. It was a personal account at first. The only reason I made it is so that I could keep my transactions separate, just to make things easier for me for like tracking and tax purposes. So all of my Truist stuff was like my personal and my full-time job income and stuff like that. And then Ally was any money coming into the business or going out of the business, just so I could keep it straight, but it was a personal account. Once I opened my professional business bank account with PNC, I was now able to transfer my Ally to be my personal account, and now PNC takes the place of my business account. So it was like a whole big thing. But once I got everything situated, it made life a lot easier. Now, going into QuickBooks, and QuickBooks is an entire situation of its own. For QuickBooks, I hated it. I still hate it, honestly. I can't say that I hate it because I use it and it's a good tool, but I think there are so many issues that have to be worked out. Like, I cannot even tell you how many times I am literally slamming my head off of my table, screaming into a pillow because I'm so frustrated because my books aren't balancing and it's tracking transactions weird, and now they jacked up the PayPal integration so bad that now my PayPal is just never balanced. Like, PayPal used to be when you would link your account in QuickBooks in that little area, PayPal would pull right in right next to your other like bank accounts. And then all of a sudden it was this push for like, we're gonna do the PayPal connector. We're going to make things better. We're going to make things faster, and we're going to improve things. We're going to do the PayPal connector app. And now it's no longer going to be with the actual bank accounts like it always has been, which was easy, which was fine. It wasn't broken. It didn't need to be changed. And now we're going to put it in a totally separate tab. And the bank balance and the in QuickBooks is no longer going to function because that's better. I'm so pissed. I'm so pissed over the PayPal connector app. It is shit. I'm so mad over it. It's literally like when Adobe Illustrator took the Pantone swatches out of Illustrator and now you have to pay for this bullshit Pantone connector app. I'm sorry. I'm so frustrated. This bullshit Pantone connector app that's terrible. That's awful. Literally every creative, mark me if I'm wrong. If there's a creative out there that like thinks that it's good, please let me know because I am so curious. But every creative I have talked to about the Pantone connector app has said it is utter shit. And the PayPal connector app is no different. So got very mad at QuickBooks over that because now I just can't balance my PayPal. And then I went into this rabbit hole of trying to reconcile my PayPal account. And the problem is when you go in and you make a reconciliation, if you have an accountant connected to your QuickBooks, it might even be this way even if you don't have an accountant connected to your QuickBooks. You can't delete a reconciliation. You have to get an accountant and ask them to delete it for you because they know how to manage your books better than you do, the business owner of the company. QuickBooks, if you're listening, can you please make a fucking feature where we can delete our reconciliations without having to annoy our accountants? I'd really appreciate that. Thanks, QuickBooks. Love, Jen. So yeah, I am really frustrated. I feel like there's so much stuff QuickBooks just needs to work on. It's great. I hate the integration of AI in it. That is also pretty recent, within like the last 2 to 3 months, I would say. They started to integrate AI everywhere and it's making stuff awful. All of like the preset where I can make a rule and every recurring transaction will follow the rule, all of those broke. It was just such a mess when they integrated AI, and I really haven't found a feature that's beneficial. Like, it literally made things worse, not better. So there's that. But when you connect your bank account, it's really, really tough because you have to connect your bank account to QuickBooks and the integration is usually pretty seamless, but then it dumps all of these friggin' transactions. And this is where having separate accounts came in so clutch. So because I had accounts separate, when I connected that bank account and it dumped all of my transactions into QuickBooks, I at least knew they were all business transactions. Now, if you have a mix all in the same account, Godspeed, because you're going to be sifting through that forever. But I kept everything separate. And luckily, when I started my QuickBooks, I didn't have a ton of business transactions at that point. So that was good. I didn't have too much to go through, but it was such a pain. Like PayPal. Literally, if you don't connect PayPal, you're probably going to have half the problems that I had trying to integrate with QuickBooks. But when I first got everything together, Ally, beautiful, butter, easy. Barely had any transactions, smooth as butter, integrated perfect, everything categorized fine, great. I connected my PayPal and it was a mess. And I only used my PayPal for business transactions. So it was like such a mess. It duplicated literally everything. Like I had copies on copies on copies of the same transaction. So what I ended up having to do was just suck it up and put my big girl pants on. And I went into PayPal and I printed out all of my monthly statements on paper. And then I pulled up QuickBooks on my computer and I literally took highlighters and I was highlighting all of the duplicate and triplicate and whatever transactions going through manually one by one. It was a nightmare. It was a pain. I hope that they've updated, that maybe it's a little bit better, because at the time that I did all of this was probably like 3 years ago, 3 years ago. But now it's great. Like once you're integrated and once you get your bank accounts linked and all of everything categorized properly, once it pulls in transactions like as they happen, it's way, 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 way easier, because as they happen, you know what it is. But to go back through all of those records and put it into the different buckets where you have to, it's just a nightmare. So that's that. QuickBooks does make things easy. Like literally doing my taxes, it's an amazing thing to be able to just categorize everything that happens throughout the year, have my accountant be directly connected to it, and at the end of the year say, my books are up to date, and they handle the rest. Amazing. Low stress. Worth it. Don't really love having to bang my head off my desk and scream because I can't undo a reconciliation and I'm just trying to get my stinking books balanced because PayPal's broken now and I don't ever see it being remedied. I think I'm just going to get rid of it, honestly. I barely use PayPal anymore for like client stuff. It's all done through my business bank account. So I said I should just disconnect it and be done. But now it's like I can't take that loss, you know. Now it's at the point. Now it's a standoff. And I'm not backing down. So I'm just going to keep rocking with it, I guess. That is QuickBooks. Let me just make sure that I didn't miss anything else. That's my experience in QuickBooks. If there's any other specific questions to whoever what it was that reached out, like just let me know and I can do my best to like send you a voice recording, because I could ramble about finance stuff all day, but I hope that answers some stuff about QuickBooks at least. Connecting a bank account is a pain in the butt. It's going to take a lot of time and it's going to be pretty agonizing, but once you get through it, it becomes easier. Invoicing is amazing. In QuickBooks, I love it. It categorizes everything properly if you do it natively in the app. What I like to do is I will prepare an estimate and I send that to my client so that way I can get a formal acceptance, because they have to click on accept estimate. And as soon as you do that, you go over to the invoice tab and you can convert that estimate to a payable invoice. Love it. Smooth as butter. Awesome feature. 10 out of 10. Have no complaints. They do an amazing job with that. Getting paid with net 30 or even net 90, I actually don't know. I would definitely recommend reaching out to the creative community about that, because I actually never had to deal with that in my business. Usually when I'm working with clients, it's always I take a deposit up front. Usually if it's a job under $3,000, I take a 50% deposit up front, 50% on completion. If it's any job that's $3,000 or more, what I'll offer is either they could do the 50% up front, 50% on completion if they want, or I also offer a 25% up front, 25% halfway through the project, and then 50% on completion. So that's kind of how I handle getting paid. That's what I stick to. Like, that's in my contract. I don't really do net 30s or net 90s. I don't know that I'll ever end up working with a company that does that kind of stuff. So I don't have a ton of information on that, unfortunately. Banks holding checks because they don't know if it's real. Like I said, the only time I ever had a company hold anything was PayPal, and then it always like eventually went through. So I'm not really sure about that. I don't have a ton of knowledge on that particular stuff. And then, yeah, other types of things like that. Local credit unions do seem to be better than big chain banks, but like you said, a lot of them do have the same policies. If you're thinking going the online banking route, I can't recommend Ally enough. It has been so good to me. It is so easy to use. It is so wonderful. And to just wrap up this little talk nerdy to me financial episode, one of the other things that I learned in running the financial side of my business that I didn't know up front is one of the biggest things is if you can focus as hard as you can on a savings account. And this isn't something that I started doing until just recently, but I really started to hyper focus on having a savings account. And I have that through Ally. They have like a 3.50% interest rate. It's pretty good. And they make it so easy to just transfer between your checking and your savings. So I really started to put a huge emphasis on making sure if I have any type of considerable amount of money that it's sitting in the right place. I like to make sure that I have enough in my checking account to pay bills and things like that. But any type of like, if it's $2,000-$3,000, I used to have like $4,000 to $5,000 sitting in my PNC. And that was just, it wasn't a good place for it to sit. If it's sitting in your checking account, it's not going to do anything for you. And even if it's super small, something's better than nothing. So I really started to hyper focus on making sure that if I have a decent amount of money saved up, it is sitting in the proper account where it can make the most amount of money. So if I have like an excess in PNC and I'm like, you know, I have a lot in PNC, I'll send it to my Ally savings account where it can at least accrue interest. And that's something that I started to do only recently, but I feel really confident in this decision. It makes me feel more comfortable knowing my money is at least sitting in a place where it can make itself more money. And even though if it's only $4 a month, like that kind of stuff stacks. And the more money that you can put into it, the more money that it's going to make it so much better than sitting in a checking. It literally cripples my soul because I didn't know anything about finances when I started my business. And my dad claims to be a financial wizard, but there were some questionable decisions that he made. I think he just has an old school way of thinking where back in the day you would have to go to a physical bank and you would have to submit a form if you wanted to move money from a checking into a savings. You would also have to do taxes if you made a decent amount on interest. That has to go into your taxes at the end of the year. I don't think that that's something extra that he wanted to do. But when I was working in industry, I had $30,000 sitting in a checking account. That melts my brain now that I have a better understanding of, please don't let that be you. If you ever have that kind of money saved up, like if you're just starting your business, and you're saving money to go into business, please, for the love of God, make sure that it's in a savings account, because that would have made me, I think, like $1,000 at the end of the year. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And the more you have in there, the more it's going to make. I actually crunched the numbers because I was curious the other day, and I was like, how much money do I have to have in a savings account to pay rent? Because that would be awesome. It would cost $250,000 sitting in a savings account to make what I would need to pay rent, which is $700 a month, which is like a little over $8,000 a year. But if you have $250,000 sitting in a savings account, it's going to make you almost $10,000 a year with the right interest rate. That's insane. That's something to work towards, like in the video games where you have to like save up certain amounts of things to be able to advance to the next level. That's how I'm looking at it at this point, and I'm just doing everything I can to focus on that savings account. So don't be me. Don't have $30,000 sitting in a checking account. That's terrible. Make sure that it's in an appropriate account where it's going to make money as it sits there, because everybody loves that. And the other thing, one of the really great pieces of advice that my dad did give me when he was teaching me about finances is credit cards. When you are paying your credit card, and I don't know if this is something that most people already know or not, but when you pay your credit card, it gives you 3 options. It says your minimum payment, and usually it's like $25, but then you get whacked a crazy amount of interest. It'll say minimum payment due. It'll say statement balance, which is your closing statement balance, which is due. Like, you have to pay that number in order to not accrue interest on the credit card. So it'll be minimum payment, you get whacked interest on that. Statement balance, if you pay that in full, you won't get whacked interest. And then current balance is what you currently have on the card. He found the secret formula that is literally like the golden ratio. If you take your statement balance, so like let's say for example, your statement balance is 600 and then your current balance is 1,000. He always takes those two numbers and splits the difference. Because that way you don't want to put yourself in an uncomfortable position where you're spending a ton of money and, you know, you kind of want to save yourself a little time to make that money back. You don't want to keep spending it all outright, but you also don't want to just pay the statement balance, because then it just keeps adding up for the next month. So if you just pay your statement balance, you just pay that 600. That 400 is going to carry over onto next month, plus what you're already spending. So then let's say next month you rack up about the same amount. Now you're going to have $1,000 for your statement balance, and maybe let's say $1,400 on your current balance, and on, and it stacks. And that's how they get you in credit card debt. So you don't want to just pay your statement balance. He takes that statement balance, for example, 600, and then the current balance, for example, 1,000, and he'll split the difference and he'll pay 800. So that way you're not putting yourself in a situation where you're spending too much outright. You're not putting yourself in a situation where that extra is going to carry over onto next month and it's going to start to become crippling. He's always splitting the difference right down the middle and putting himself in a good position either way. And I started to do that, and it has been great. So if you're somebody that struggles with credit cards, that is something to really look towards, and always only spend what you have. You know, don't go racking up your credit card crazy high. Try to think of it like a debit card. Like, try to only spend what you know you have in your account, because credit card debt sucks and the interest is insane and it takes so long to get out of it. So if you could kind of just try to stay on top of that stuff, your future self will thank you. And put any lump sums in a savings account. Those are my words of advice. Thanks for talking nerdy with me on finance and accounting for businesses. I hope that this episode helped. If you guys have any other questions or, you know, want to ask me about anything else, feel free to let me know. And thanks for tuning in as always. I love to hear from you guys, and I will catch you in the next one. Super exciting. The next one's going to be a guest episode. We got somebody very special coming up, and I'm very excited to have them on the show. So I will catch you guys in the next one. Stay awesome, be positive, be kind to each other, stay creative, and always be curious. Bye.